Welcome to Talkin' SEC. Writer, photographer, and producer Phillip Jordan discusses the latest news and breaks down the biggest games with the best analysts around. Now, from Southeast Alabama, a state that knows its sports, here is Phillip Jordan.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into Talking SEC. It is Thursday. It is a preview Thursday. We're going to be previewing all 5 SEC Week 9 matchups with Matt Lowe here on the podcast. Got a big one this week with Tennessee and Kentucky. You got the big world's largest outdoor cocktail party. Yes, that's right. I am going to say that. We will preview that one. We'll talk Ole Miss, A&M, Auburn, Arkansas, Missouri, South Carolina. We're talking about all the big matchups, all 5 matchups in the SEC in Week 9. You can check out Talking SEC on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you're on Apple Podcasts, please follow, rate, and review. It means a lot to the show if you do that. If you leave a review, I will read it on a future edition of the show. You can also watch the show over on YouTube, either at the Phillip Jordan YouTube channel. Just hit the subscribe button, hit the bell for all notifications, and leave a comment on a video. I'll read that on a future edition of the show. Also over on the Talking SEC YouTube channel as well. You can always email me at sports.phillipjordan@gmail.com or hit me up on social media at pjordansec. Everybody, it is Thursday. That means I am joined by Matt Lowe, the owner of lowdownsports.com, where we are going to go through each and every SEC game. We'll pick them, get some thoughts on the games, break them down, all kinds of good stuff. And Matt, as always, I appreciate you taking time to come on the show.
No problem, Phillip. Looking forward to it, man. It's starting to get a little separation between the good and the great teams here, and this is a critical stretch right through here.
What did Brian Kelly say last week? October is for pretenders and November is for contenders. So we're about to hop into November. This is the last week of October, last full week of October. So so we're about to find out who are the real deals and who are, just looking at college football as a whole. We talk about and when will the 12-team playoffs start? We could use it this year. Yeah.
There's a number of good teams out there. I mean, you still got people like TCU and Michigan. I mean, I'm wondering how good Michigan is. I mean, they just curb stomped Penn State, who with a veteran quarterback, and Penn State has some serious talent on their team on offense and defense. And I was surprised that they just beat them the way they did. And of course, you got Ohio State and SEC teams. It's wild. And I tell you, man. I thought UCLA was a pretty good team. And Oregon just simply destroyed them. I think they scored on like every offensive possession in that game, which is insane. But Bo Nix, I wonder if, that guy looks like a different player right now.
Yeah, I know. For a lot of Auburn people, it's got to be like one of those deals like you're looking at your ex, and then you realize your ex is in a better situation with who they were with than when they were with you. And it seems like what it was with Bo Nix, because he's playing good ball. He's playing like the quarterback I think everybody thought he was going to be when he came out of high school.
Yeah, man. It's like seeing your ex go off and get better looking, and then also become a quadruple millionaire gazillionaire. So, but yeah, man, he's Kenny Dillingham had him, in Auburn for that 1 year he was there as an offensive coordinator. And that guy, they're dialing up plays. And I've come to the conclusion that nobody in the Pac-12 can play defense, which I thought UCLA was better than they were there. And same thing with USC. So I don't know. It's very well possible that Oregon could win out and, make the playoff potentially.
Yeah, definitely. They just need Georgia to keep doing what they're doing. So we'll talk about Georgia here today too as well. We talk about Bo Nix, former Auburn quarterback. That's the first game on Saturday. Auburn's back in action on Saturday. So is Arkansas. Arkansas 4-3, Auburn 3-4. They're both 1-3 in the conference. It doesn't feel like Arkansas should be 1-3. They're actually, if you look at the standings, they have them at last place in the SEC West. It should be. They won 3 in a row. They lost 3, and in their last game, they beat BYU 52-35. This will be 11 o'clock SEC Network. Arkansas is listed as a 3.5-point favorite. The over/under 62 on this one. And Matt, I look at this game here, especially from the Auburn side of things. Auburn's going to have to – obviously, this is going to be a scoring match. Auburn's going to have to continue what they were doing against Ole Miss in the run game. And an interesting stat I saw with Arkansas, in their 3 losses, they have given up 160 yards rushing or more. So when they defend the run well, they win. When they don't play well. I think that's the key for Auburn going into this one, because I don't think they can stop Arkansas's run game. Auburn's the worst run defense in the SEC. So that's kind of like my take on this game. Where are you leaning? What's the matchups in this one you're really looking at between Auburn and Arkansas?
Well, I mean, if Auburn was a good passing team, they would have an advantage there. I mean, we've seen that all year. I mean, Arkansas they got, 2 or 3 of their better players were out in the secondary. So that's where they can be had. Problem is just Auburn's not a good passing team. And, they look better on offense against Ole Miss, sure. And a week off is, a good thing. But, it's like you said, I don't think they're going to be able to stop KJ Jefferson and Rocket Sanders in that running attack of Arkansas. And, but I mean, I think Auburn's game plan they need to throw the ball up. I mean, they need to try to throw the ball, try to hit that secondary for some big plays. And, what we're seeing too, Phillip, is last week, I'm kind of getting off this game for a second, but Ole Miss, their running game with these great rushing attacks, it's good when you're winning and don't get too far behind. Mm-hmm. But if you get too far behind, it takes kind of a team out of its, comfort zone, and it's more difficult for them to operate. So, I mean, I think it would be big for Auburn to get a good lead in this game and maybe put some pressure on Arkansas throwing the ball. But, I'm like you. I think it's going to be a shootout, and maybe the fresh legs help Auburn. I don't know. And, but right now, I mean, Landon King, I think he hit the transfer portal this week. That was a guy who was supposedly the talk of spring, a big kid, was going to play a big role in the offense. Basically had like one catch all year, and that was that leaping catch against Penn State, which he one-handed the ball and caught it. I don't know. I don't understand why a guy like that wasn't used. And I've had question marks all season long why certain guys aren't being used and how certain guys are being used. So I still don't really know what this Auburn team is. They are at home, yeah. But, I mean, I think it would be better if they were at home playing at night in this game than in the day. I really don't think that's a significant advantage. But I don't know. I think Auburn might pull a rabbit out of the hat here, and I'll take them pulling an upset for some reason. I'll just think they might do it.
And this is probably what I'm going to write about for last one college football this week with my Auburn stuff. And I was thinking about it, looking at their schedule. And a lot of people may watch this or listen to this and think I'm insane or crazy for what I'm about to say. I still think there's a chance Auburn can get bowl eligible because they have Arkansas this week. Like you said, that's going to be a scoring match. You got Mississippi State next week, and Mississippi State hasn't played great. And I think there's a blueprint you can follow a little bit on Mississippi State, how to defend them. Then you got A&M. We know A&M can't score a lot of points. And then you got Western Kentucky. I think if they could get the 5 wins somehow and then play Western Kentucky, they beat Western Kentucky, they can get the 6 wins. They're not beating Alabama. That's just not happening. They're going to Tuscaloosa. They just don't play well there. Do you think I'm kind of losing my mind, Matt? I still think this team can get bowl eligible if it's going to be hard. And I'm not saying they will beat these teams, but I think there's a couple teams still left on their schedule. If they could somehow just play better in the second half, they could upset some people and get the 6 wins and get to a bowl game. Yeah,
and they were right there with Ole Miss. That game kind of flipped, though, on the screen pass interception that Ashford threw behind Tank because they were at midfield, and then Ole Miss goes on a 21-0 run. That's the problem with Auburn all season long has been turnovers. I mean, they've been in games, and they just turn the ball over and bad times too, and yeah, I mean, if they clean that up, sure, they can. I mean, I think they could beat Texas A&M. I think they could win. I think they could beat Arkansas this weekend, but they haven't proven that they can take care of the ball. And then you have the penalty thing, and that's look, man, the more you turn the ball over, the less the percentage of winning goes down, and that includes every team. It ain't just it's not just the teams that are 3-3 and 3-4 right now. It's all of them. I mean, so that's the big thing with me. I don't feel like Auburn's being severely out talented by every team it plays. It's just executing at the right time. And that comes down to coaching and the players too. The players are out there playing the game. So they got to make plays when the time's right.
Yeah, and I say all that. I think I'm going to go with Arkansas. I still think just because how they could run the ball, and that's just something Auburn struggles at stopping. It's just, and like you said, I feel like Robbie Asher's going to make a mistake at some point in the game because he's young and he's getting better, but he seems to. So there's probably wants to pick Auburn, but I'm also going to go. I'm going to go with Arkansas this one. And you talk turnovers. We have a game between two teams that like turn over the ball a lot coming up a little bit here on the SEC schedule. Florida and Georgia are playing. This is obviously one of the great rivalries in college football. It's always cool to see this game down in Jacksonville. I know Kirby's smart. I think he wants to get this thing out of Jacksonville and start playing in Athens, which I get it from a recruiting standpoint. This is always the 2:30 game on CBS. Georgia's a 22.5-point favorite in this one. The over-under is 56.5 points. But I just look at this, man, I have a hard time seeing Florida have any chance at this game just because, one, Anthony Richardson likes to turn the ball over. I think Georgia can lean on their run game and their offensive line in this game. Florida's the second worst team in the SEC when it comes to stopping the run. And Anthony Richardson's just going to have to put on the Superman cape to give them any chance at winning this one. I think Georgia's going to win this thing big, but what do you see with this matchup with Florida and Georgia?
I mean, if Florida has any chance, Richardson's going to have to go off. I mean, that's just all there is to it. I mean, and normally too, when you're the thing about a running quarterback and playing Georgia is they're just so physical, on defense. I mean, and they can punish you after a while. But I mean, I think they have a shot maybe, but with a week to prepare and the weapons that Georgia has, I mean, Stetson Bennett, I mean, he's over 2,000 yards passing. Brock Bowers is I don't know how Florida's going to stop him. But I mean, it's just such a rivalry game. I mean, you never know sometimes what can happen. But I'm with you. Yeah, I mean, I think Georgia. They just, to me though, Georgia's like 1 week. They're like, you don't know what they're doing. Like the Missouri game, they came out, and then the Kent State game, you're like, what's going on? And then they come out and destroy Vanderbilt. I mean, like that wasn't even a. So it's almost like Kirby plays a mind game with his players, in my opinion. It's weird how they just lock in and just come out and ball. But I don't see Florida beating them. If there's a couple of turnovers in the game and their defense all of a sudden can stop the run, which they haven't been able to all year, I mean they might have a chance. But I like Georgia pretty big here. I mean I think they cover that. What's the last line? 22?
Yeah, 22.5.
Yeah, I think they cover that pretty easy.
Yeah, with Richardson, he's got 6 touchdown passes and 7 interceptions. So I got a lot that will turn the ball over. And you look at Florida, look at the stats. They're actually third in the SEC when it comes to rushing, but Georgia's so good he gets a run.
Yeah.
And I think Jalen Carter could be back this Saturday. So that does not work good for Florida either. I mean, that's the thing with Georgia. They're getting some guys back that maybe been banged up too on the defense side.
Yeah, and Jalen, I mean, you're talking about a top 10 NFL talent.
Mm-hmm.
You lose a guy like that, I don't care what team you are, that's going to hurt. I mean, that's a big-time player out there, so getting him back will be huge. I've been a little surprised at times this year how Georgia's defensive line's been pushed around just a little bit. I mean, it's not like that people have been manhandling them, but I've been surprised at that at times this season. But then again, when Georgia's locked in and they're fired up to play, I mean, they play at a different level.
Yeah, they do. They do. So yeah, I look at it. It's always fun to see, but I don't think it's going to work too good out for the Gators on that one on Saturday. A game that will be being played during that time. I don't know how many SEC fans will be checking this one out. Missouri finally got an SEC win at 3-4, 1-3 in the conference. They're at number 25, South Carolina. South Carolina is back in the top 25. They're 5-2. They won 4 games in a row. 3 o'clock SEC Network. South Carolina's a 4-point favorite here. The over-under is 46 and a half points. Like I said, Missouri, they were up 17-0 last week against Vanderbilt. They let Vanderbilt get back. I was like, oh no, is it going to happen to is it going to happen to Missouri again? Are they going to blow it? Or are they going to lose a close one? And then South Carolina's coming off that 30-24 game over Texas A&M. I think the key to this one is turnover battle, because South Carolina's been a team that has turned the ball. That was my key last week in going to A&M. I thought A&M was going to win that game because I thought Spencer Rattler was going to do something at the end of the game to lose it for South Carolina. He didn't play great, but he took care of the ball. South Carolina is 5-0 this season when they're creating a turnover, 0-2 when they don't. They've got 10 turnovers they forced in the last 4 games. Missouri likes to turn the ball over a lot. They've done that all year. But defensively, Missouri has been really good or better since the Kansas State game when they lost 40-12. Teams are averaging 19 points a game against them. I say all that to say this. I think this is a lower scoring game. I think it stays close. But I think South Carolina is going to win because Missouri is just the more turnover-prone team is basically. And South Carolina's playing good ball. Look, they find a way to win. They get a turnover on defense. The special teams, they play beamer ball. The offense, when it doesn't do something, they really hurt them. When Spencer Rattler protects the ball, does what he needs to do, they're playing well under Shane Beamer, and I think they're going to continue that ride. I think they win probably like a 2017, 24-17 game over Missouri.
Yeah, and what you mentioned, I mean, you gave stats out right there about when teams turn the ball over, what their record is as opposed to what it's not. I mean, and it's pretty cut and dry. I mean, look, we can go all in. Football is I mean, we can get all into the analytics of things, but I mean, it's pretty cut and dry. It's not rocket science. I mean, you gotta protect the ball. I mean, and Marshawn Lloyd is a tailback for South Carolina that he's on fire. He scored in 5 straight games, and he's tied with Jalen Daniels for the most rushing touchdowns in the SEC with 9. So I like what they're doing with him. I mean, I also think the other tailback they have, Juju McDowell, is a good change of pace guy, and Jaheim Bell's another guy. I don't think they've gotten the ball enough too. But I'm with you. I mean, Brady Cook from Missouri, his turnover problem has cost them a couple of games. I mean, so yeah, you're right about that. And Rattler, I mean, that's been a bugaboo with him, and he didn't do it last game. But I mean, you take away that touchdown right there at the beginning of the game for A&M special teams, South Carolina scoring that TD. I mean, if they don't score that TD, that's a lot more. That's a tighter ball game than it looks. So, but I don't know, man. Missouri, they're not that bad.
They're right there. They're in pretty much. I mean, they had Georgia on the ropes. I mean, you probably say they should have beat Auburn. They should have beat Auburn the way that game ended. That should have been a win. Auburn didn't win that game. Missouri lost it. That's just kind of how that one was. And then, they were Florida turnovers, got them in that one. So, I mean, they've been in a lot of these games. The Kansas State game, if you really look at their schedule, that's the only game they were not really in when they lost 40-12.
Well, and that's a good football team, too. And that's a hard place to play. I mean, Manhattan, Kansas is not an easy place to play. And Adrian Martinez and Deuce Vaughn on that offense, they got some players on that offense. So, I don't know, man. I'm almost to the point, though, where I think South Carolina, I don't think they are as good as everybody thinks they are. I do think they are getting better, and I think they have some talented players. I'm gonna say, and I might be getting out of line here, but I think Missouri goes in and upsets them in a stunner.
And a key player for that, Luther Burden. Get that guy the ball more often if you're Missouri. When he got 17-0 first half, there were 2 touchdowns scored by him, one on a 35-yard pass and a 10-yard run. He's a playmaker. He was, I think, the top receiver recruit coming out. He stayed at Missouri. He stayed in state. They kept him there. I mean, just find ways to get him the ball, whatever you can do on offense. I think that'll work out good for you too as well, getting a guy that's talented like that the ball.
Yeah, and I don't even. He only had like 1 catch against Auburn, I think. But it's like kind of with Keyshawn Boutte. It's like, dude, you got to get your guy, whether it's a screen pass or reverse, whatever it is. I mean, because when a guy it's almost like not giving a running back enough carries. I mean, I remember watching Ronnie Brown. Like Ronnie Brown, you'd have to give him some carries to get going. Stephen Davis was a guy like that. I mean, sometimes you just got to give guys carries and let them run the ball.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and
Derrick Henry's one of those guys. He's like that at Alabama. He's like that in the NFL. He's not really that great in the first and second quarter, but as he gets going in that second half, get more carries, he gets better as the game goes on. And a lot of, I think a lot of guys are that way.
And it's funny you say that because I had Derrick Henry on my fantasy team about 3 or 4 years ago, and the head coach of the Packers, what's his name?
LaFleur now, or was it before?
LaFleur, and he was the OC for the Tennessee Titans.
Oh, yeah.
And like Derrick Henry to have like 10 carries, 12 carries, and I was just so frustrated. I was like, what is going on? Why is this guy only getting like 10 carries a game? Because like what you said, I mean, he's a guy you got to give 20, 25 because his big body and his running style just beats you. Then he's breaking runs, and but anyway, because I drafted for my buddy's team and he was all mad at me about Derrick Henry. Well, anyway, the playoffs come around and Derrick Henry goes off for 200 yards, 220 yards, 190 yards, 200. And he was like, what in the world, Lowe? And I was like, I don't know. I mean, like, but you remember what I'm talking about? He ran for like 1,500 yards like the last 4 games.
Mm-hmm.
And he was getting carries. But you got to give running backs carries. And there's some that don't need a lot of carries, but usually the good ones, they like getting pounded on a little bit, get some lubed up a little bit so they can go out there and run, man. I mean, but I don't know. It's just sometimes I don't understand sometimes the usage of some of these talented players in the SEC.
Well, speaking as a Packer fan, Matt LaFleur seems to still have that issue because he does not like to give the ball to Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon there. Now, this is SEC show, so I'm not going to go too much of a tangent on that, but it does seem like that trend of his has continued even though you have 2 very talented backs. Some coaches like that. They just get in love with the pass and they just don't want to, or they have a veteran quarterback that likes to check off from that run. But anyways, I don't think I need to go off in that tangent, not on this show. Let's jump into Kentucky and Tennessee. I mean, this is the game of the day in the SEC. Number 19, Kentucky, 5-2. They were off last week. Might as well say Tennessee was off last week, playing UT Martin. No offense to any UT Martin fans we may have out there listening to the show. 6 o'clock game on ESPN. Tennessee's a 12.5-point favorite in this one. Over-under is 62.5. I look at this game, I'm just going to say, one, if Tennessee is looking past Kentucky and ahead to Georgia, that's a mistake. Because if you do that, you're not 100% focused on Kentucky. Kentucky's good enough to beat you. They've got talent. But I also wonder, okay, I think the biggest weapon Kentucky has is Chris Rodriguez. Lean on him, run the ball. Because even though Tennessee can score within a minute, I think you need to do all you can to keep their offense off the field. And then Will Levis making some key plays and scoring in the red zone. I think Kentucky has struggled with that at times this year when they get into the red zone, have to go with field goals. But it's going to be tough. They're in Knoxville. Tennessee, if they focus, that offense is hard to stop. The best offense in college football. But I just feel like if Kentucky can slow this game down, they have an opportunity to win this game. It'll be close in the fourth quarter. What is your read on this game?
Well, a big matchup to me that I don't think a lot of people are talking about is Tennessee's run defense. They're tied for 8th in the country with Ohio State, giving up about 90 yards a game on the ground. So that's a strength of the Tennessee defense. Mm-hmm. So, and I'm with you. Kentucky's going to have to maintain long, methodical drives to win this game, and they're going to have to score touchdowns because their kicking game's terrible. I mean, I've seen it firsthand. They're terrible. They can't make – I've seen the extra points get blocked. The dude can't make a 30-yard field goal. And when you're playing against a team like Tennessee, you better be able to score points. And it goes back to what we've talked about before. You know, if Tennessee jumps out to a 14-point lead, there's going to be a lot. What's Kentucky's ground attack going to do then? I mean, so that's why it's critical. If Tennessee does jump out to that kind of elite, you got to stay patient. You got to keep running Rodriguez, and you got to keep doing what you do, and you can't just go, all right, we're full blown. We got to throw every down, because in Kentucky wide receivers Tavion Robinson and Barry and Brown, he's a true freshman. The kid's a special player. He's great on special teams too. So he'll need to have a huge game, especially in the return game. I mean, because those are momentum shifting plays if you can get a 60, 70-yard punt return, kick return, and then get a quick score. And De'Eric Jackson, linebacker for Kentucky, Deion Walker, he's the big 6'6", 320-pound defensive tackle. He's going to need to have a big game and get him Tennessee's backfield, because everybody, the passing stats from Hendon Hooker and this receiving core that Tennessee has is excellent. And their tight ends, nobody really talk about, Jacob Warren and Princeton Fant. I mean, Warren's a 6'6", 250-pound target and as a tight end, and Fant 6'2", 245, and they're involved in the blocking and pass attack as well. But their running game, the Vols' running game, is good. And so they have that balance. And, Kentucky's a good has a good run defense. But I think that's the thing teams need to try to take out more is Tennessee's run game. If they can keep them under 80 yards per se, and really, really force Tennessee to beat them passing. And I know that might sound crazy, but, an offense can really control a game when both are working. So it'll be interesting to see, because Kentucky's got a good front seven. Now, the back half is not that great, but if they can hold in there and limit, Tennessee to under 100 yards, I think they might have a shot. But in the end, I do not think they're going to have enough scoring power to keep up with Tennessee. So I see Tennessee winning this game by about 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, I can't. I think I got like a 10-point win. I'm with you. I just don't think Kentucky's going to have enough firepower. And you're right. If they were to get down 14-0, then you wonder, will they have that pressure? Okay, like you said, we have to throw. We have to try to get it all back in one score instead of just staying with the game plan, doing what you need to do. But like I said, Tennessee, they're good against the run. They give up like 330 yards a game through the air. So let's see. I mean, that's going to be strength versus strength. Kentucky's run game versus Tennessee's run defense. So, but yeah, I'm with you. I think Tennessee will be focused on this game, and they will be ready for Georgia all next week.
Well, and it's at night too. I mean, that place, they just got a lot of momentum going. I mean, I'm not saying Kentucky couldn't get them, but I just think offensively Tennessee's going to be too much.
Then finally, the last game, number 15, Ole Miss travels to Texas A&M. A&M's under 500, 3-4, 6:30 SEC Network. Ole Miss 2-point favorite, over under 55 points. Matt, did you know that A&M has not played a home game since September 17th?
Wow, did not know that.
Because they had the neutral site game with Arkansas in there, but yeah, they've been on the road. They've had an off week, so yeah, they have not got to play at home. So I'm figuring College Station is going to be rocking on Saturday night because they hadn't got to see their home team, and look, they're going to need that jolt of energy. I look at this game. We talked about the last one about can Kentucky score enough points. Texas A&M's got a good defense. They keep them in ball games, and we saw last week with LSU. They got pressure on Jackson Dart, and they slowed down that Ole Miss running attack. I mean, Zach Evans didn't play, and then Dart's going to throw you he's going to throw you some passes that you can intercept. I mean, he's a risky person with the pass. I just kind of wonder, can A&M just score enough points in this one? I mean, I know Ole Miss's defense hasn't been great, and A-Chain could have a big day in this one if Ole Miss plays like they have been lately. But again, I think it could be close. I don't think A&M's going to be able to put up enough points, especially like we don't know what the quarterback situation is going to be. Haynes King hurt the shoulder, hurt the arm last week. Connor Wigman had to come in. It's just there's a lot of questions about this A&M offense. I have a hard time picking them in this one.
Well, I'm going to pick them. But because a little difference of opinion is always a good thing, isn't it, Phillip?
Oh yeah.
But I think Ole Miss, I think they could be getting a little tired, just because, and this back half of their schedule is brutal.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought they kind of ran out of gas last week. And to me, that game, and it goes back to what we've talked about with the team that runs. When you get behind and you got to lean on a quarterback, which Jackson Dart missed some plays that were there.
Mm-hmm.
And, that happens sometimes. And I thought the game flipped on the interception in the end zone, because that could have given Ole Miss the lead in the third quarter.
Mm-hmm.
And you're looking at what, a 26-24 game, something like that, depending if they kick the extra point or not, which we don't know what coaches are going to do nowadays.
Especially that one.
Yeah, especially that one. So, and then you just kind of saw LSU went back and scored and got up by 11, and then Ole Miss was just kind of out of rhythm. Like what do we do? We got to score now. We got to score quick. And once again, that man BJ Ojulari for LSU makes plays. I mean, and that guy, man, he outside of Anderson at Alabama, I think he's the best pass rusher in the SEC as far as affecting game-changing plays.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he makes game-changing plays. And so, who knows who's going to start at quarterback, but A-Chain, I mean, if Tank Bigsby and these other running backs can run all over, Ole Miss's defense, why can't he? So, yeah. And I like the home crowd there at night, being an underdog. Ole Miss's defense is just really reeling. So I'll go. A&M's got a better defense, so I'll go A&M. I think it'll be a tight game, but I think they win 34-30, something like that.
And the thing about it too, Jimbo Fisher's got to have this one. I mean, for him too, because I mean everything going on around him. If they drop to 3-5, I mean they're not going to fire him, because that buyout, I mean, it's massive. I mean, it's like $86 million to get, for if they wanted to fire him. So that's not going to happen. But he needs this one. This is a big game for Jimbo Fisher. I mean, I think too, if they could score first, 7-0 with that crowd, I think that would be a big factor too as well. Really could put them over the top if they can jump on Ole Miss first and get some momentum.
Sure, and that's a hard place to go win at, and the other team makes mistakes just because of the crowd noise. But man, I mean, you're talking about what, 80-something million to buy him out? Is that how much it is? I mean,
think about this. Auburn, the Gus Malzahn buyout was the most money anybody had ever paid to buy out a coach to get rid of. That was $21 million. This buyout is over 4 times more than what that was.
What are these people thinking, Phillip? Given these, I mean, it's just like you just go light $80 million on fire. I mean, I don't, it's gotten, I don't know. But the guy, I mean, the only good season he had was, the COVID year when, and the SEC just played each other. But man, I mean, you're paying a guy that much money and you're 3-4 in your fifth year.
He's an 8-4 coach.
Yeah,
that's what he is. Because if you take away at Florida, even go back to Florida State, the 2 Jameis Winston years where they went undefeated, won a national championship, and then went undefeated again to regular season, but then they lost in the playoff to Oregon. Outside of that, I mean, like you said, what was 8-1 or 9-1 in 2020? He's typically 8-4, 7-5. And I saw a stat after this past weekend. At this point in their A&M careers, he's got a worse record than Kevin Sumlin.
And you know what? And here's the thing too. It's like when Jimbo moved to the SEC, and especially the SEC West, I was like, why in the hell would you leave Florida State, where you got to play two games a year, to come into the hardest league in college football? And that's what the SEC does to coaches. It makes them 7-5 coaches, 8-4 coaches. I mean, what are we going to do when Oklahoma and Texas show up? So that's the thing that a lot of these schools need to figure out is, what are decent expectations of our program? Are we going to go 12-0 every year? Are we going to go, 11-1 one year, maybe 8-4, 8-4, 8-4, and then 12-1? I mean, kind of like what Mississippi State was doing under Dan Mullen. I mean, I thought Dan Mullen was doing a great job at Mississippi State. And another thing too, Phillip, is, signing these 5-star athletes, and signing 6 and 7 of them, and they're from all over the place. I mean, when they get on the field and they put that helmet on, do they really want to do everything in their power to win for that school? Or is it more and more about themselves? And I think that's and if I'm recruiting 25 kids, the number one thing that I want them is to love the school they're about to sign on to.
Mm-hmm.
And love going out and working hard and trying to win, because this NIL stuff and a lot of these 5-stars, it's like I talked to my buddy who coaches in Southwest Georgia. He's like, Lowe, you can come over here and find 25 dudes, because a lot of it's poverty stricken, but football is like life over there, and they play it. And I mean, what's the kid that Rashad Bateman? My buddy had to play against him, and he said, you know what, Lowe, nobody was really recruiting him because they didn't really throw the ball. They played in a running offense, and they kind of got onto him late because a couple people saw. Then of course, he went to Minnesota, came a 2nd-round pick. But it's those guys. I mean, nobody even knew who this guy was. Like, nobody was really recruiting him. And there's a diamond in the rough just because his team doesn't throw the ball. And that's what I'm talking about. Like, you can come out here and be the biggest player, biggest high school player, the most talented, and dominate a 3A school. But when you get down to Georgia and you get over to Auburn and Alabama, these boys that you're going up against, they're battle-hardened high school football players, and they want to play football. And it's you're not going to get them to back down. I mean, that's the tricky part about evaluating talent now, and that's building programs.
Yeah, it is. It's not as easy as, hey, just sign a bunch of them, and you got to find the right guys that fit what you want to do. And obviously now, like you said, want to win for the program, want to win for the team. Are they putting the team over I? Because it seems like now with the NIL stuff and so how easy you can hop in the portal too, it's a lot more about what you can do for me, not what I can do for this team.
Correct. And you're also seeing too the depth in programs. I mean, you lose your top flight corner and your top safety, and all of a sudden you're down to a guy who's never played really, or who just came into your program and is still trying to learn the system, the lingo, all that stuff. But man, I mean, football in the South, we grow up with it. It's that. I mean, playing in some private school up north when you're beating teams and going 12-0 each year, and then you come down here and play, it's a different ball game, man. It's a different ball game because we eat, sleep, and breathe it. Yeah, but there is no reason though why certain schools shouldn't be winning. But the thing is like, well, we got Alabama, we got Georgia, we got Tennessee, we got to beat Florida, we got to beat LSU. So what's the reasonable expectations?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. A lot. Everybody wants to be. The thing, someone's got to be bad. Not everybody can be good. That's the thing. I mean, how it is. So, anyways, it's going to be interesting how all this stuff kind of works itself out with the sport over the next couple of years. But yeah, fan bases and administrations, with them buyouts and these coaches going left and right. It's always interesting, and we're about to get into that time as the season gets closer to an end. Well, Matt, I do again appreciate you coming on here. Preview another week. We'll do this again next week. Before we get out of here, though, let the viewers and listeners know what they can check out and what's going on over at lowdownsports.com.
Yeah, man. Put the SEC standings, my new rankings up, so that's up on the website. And going to be doing my lowdown this week and picking the bigger national games. So kind of hit a little slide last week, so going to be looking to bounce back this week.
All right, sounds good, Matt. Anyways, I always appreciate you coming on, and we'll do this again next week.
All right, Phil. Take care, buddy.
All right, everybody, that was my conversation with Matt Lowe. We recorded that earlier on Wednesday. I'm recording this actually into Thursday morning. It's almost 1 a.m. Thursday morning when we're doing this. But I always appreciate Matt coming on the show. What you guys think? What you guys think about our picks there? If you're watching on YouTube, or leave a review on Apple Podcasts, whichever way you feel like you want to get in touch with the show, get in touch with me, P. Jordan SEC. Or leave a comment. Tell me what you think about our picks and our opinions there. And that's going to do it for the show. That's going to do it for the podcast this week. Don't do Friday pods anymore. But I appreciate you guys checking out the show. Great stuff. Go check it out. If you haven't, Coach Max Howell was on Tuesday. I did the solo thing on Monday. Coach Max Howell on Tuesday. X's and O's, breaking down the games from last week. Yesterday, Troy Sadowski was on. Check that out. Former Georgia tight end. Check that conversation out. And I appreciate you checking out this one with me and Matt. Remember, you can follow me on social media at P. Jordan SEC. The podcast is available on all your favorite podcast platforms. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, just wherever you get your podcast. If you're on Apple Podcasts, please follow, rate, and review. Leave a review. I will read it on a future edition of the show. Check out the podcast over on the Phillip Jordan YouTube channel or Talking SEC YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button, hit the bell for all notifications, and leave a comment on the video. I'll read that on a future edition as well. You can always email me at sports.phillipjordan@gmail.com. Anyways, guys, hope you have a great weekend. Enjoy the games. You've been listening to Talking SEC.
Thank you for listening to Talkin' SEC. Follow Phillip on social media at PJordanSEC and the show at Talkin' SEC Pod. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcast or wherever you get your podcast. We'll see you next time when we're talking SEC.